Thank you, Larry. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. It's been a tough session. Really, really, really tough. For anybody who values freedom to see what we saw there, it's just amazing. You know, when I was in the minority from 2008 through the 2010 session, and we had Democrats both in control of the House and Senate then, too. Actually, a steeper minority that we were in then in the House. But you know what? We had a Republican governor. We had somebody who was a backstop, somebody who was a goalie that was there to protect the goal of freedom. And knowing that that person was there, the Democrats could not bring through the items in such voluminous and virulence that they did. They had to temper what they brought through because it wouldn't get through the chief executive if they didn't temper what they brought through. This is not the case now. Right now, it's Katie bar the door because they are bringing through their full ideology at full strength as much as they can. They're working overtime to do it, and I agree with Representative Benson. There was nothing good. Well, I can think of one thing. They did get rid of the sales tax for cities and counties on purchases of equipment, which Mike and I worked on the last biennium. We weren't able to do when we were in the majority. But you know, if you raise taxes by $2.1 billion and another $300 or $400 million in fees on top of that, you should be able to find the money in order to offset that. So. You know, as I look at this and think about what the other legislators had to say, you know, just a little bit of context. Let's go back to 2007. In 2007, the Democrats took over the Minnesota House and the Minnesota Senate. They had a $2.2 billion surplus. They proceeded to spend that and more. The next biennium, they were also in control of $4.3 billion deficit. And as was mentioned, a $5 or $6 billion deficit was what we began with in 2011 when the Republicans took the majority. So we started that majority with a $5 or $6 billion deficit, depending on when you measure it. And the general fund operating budget at that time was either $30.5 or $32.5 billion, depending on how you valued the federal monies that had come in, the federal dollars that had come in, $2.2 billion that had come in. So our budget in 2011, you remember the government shut down in July. We were in the majority, and the Liberals were very, very critical of that process. You know, the governor and the Republican legislature didn't get along. You remember the governor, his commissioners wouldn't participate in the conference committees. In the conference committees on the 10 budget bills, they didn't even show up. Well, believe me, they showed up this time. There wasn't any hesitation. But in 2011, we also increased the size of government up to about a $34.5 billion general operating budgets from the 32.5 or the 30.5, depending on it. And then we also had 1.5 that we borrowed back then, which none of us liked. And it turned out, as Representative Kwong pointed out, we borrowed those dollars, and because of the other work we did, we saw reductions in spending each of the 4 last budget reports that have come out. Budget forecast reports, 4 consecutive surpluses in those that were plowed back in to pay off those debts and to pay off the debts even from the Democrat legislature before. So fiscal responsibility had set in, even though we had grown the budget beyond what I would like to have seen, and probably everybody here that biennium. This budget, you guys, is $38.3 billion. Okay, 30.5 or 32.5, 34.5 or 35.6, depending on how you measure. Now we're up to 38.3. Where's it going to go next biennium? And that's just a general operating budget. That doesn't include the other funds, which if you add that onto the general operating budget, puts us in the area of $65 billion. So that is the size and the alacrity with which this government is growing. And a lot of the details we're covering, we'll cover some more of those. But just a little bit of context when you're on the floor. One of the things I brought up, and one of the things I noticed in these bills that they were bringing, not only the budget bills, but even, even some of the policy bills, they would bring bill upon bill upon bill upon bill that were agency bills that the government had written. They brought them there, didn't even know what they contained, and a lot of times put a rubber stamp on what the government wanted to be doing. Folks, the wrong person's driving the train. I'll leave it with that. Thank you.